Hi guys from the Happy Heretic. I'm going to do a real quick walkthrough. I was just looking back at some of my videos and I've noticed a couple of things. First of all, they're really for me because I was looking back at what the yard and the gardens looked like a week or two ago, then a month ago. And honestly, I got a late start and I was wondering how it was all going to happen, how it was all going to go. What was anything going to happen? And it's always encouraging to have the videos to go back and go, oh my gosh, look what difference a week makes. Look what difference a month makes. It's a mess. It's been raining for a week, it seems like, maybe more. This time also, I usually, because they're for me, forget to mention what I did to get things to this stage and what things are sometimes. This, by the way, is one of my favorite things in the world. It's very rare. In that there are not very many trailing coleuses, but this one's from last year and trying to get it to take off again. This one also is a really nice variety from last year. But one of the ways that my garden looks the way it does, well, there are two really big things, and I credit almost everything in the garden to them. The first one is my worm bins, and I have several, but the one back there is the second, well, it's the biggest, it's the largest. And then I have a small, a giant, really what it is a giant pot for plants, a huge black pot. And that's where I overwintered a lot of my African night crawlers. But even more than that, my African night crawlers and a ton of red wigglers overwintered in my compost pile. And it's really muddy and everything is overgrown right now because, like I said, it's so wet. It's just soaking wet. But I was looking at these tomatoes and they were tiny. Oh, there was a point to all this. So I compost, and I had this year, because I've been vermicomposting for a year and a half now. So I had tons and tons and tons of vermicompost. And I don't say worm castings because, well, frankly, you almost never have pure worm castings. If you did, you would have to leave your worms in the same bin for so long that they ate not only the food, but also all of their bedding and essentially reprocessed everything. They would be living in nothing but their poop. It would be, the entire mass of it would be so fine that, well, I don't see the point in it. So I call it vermicompost because the material composts in the bin and then it's worked through by the worms, and I wait until it's nice and black, and I sift it through for potted plants, but not for much else because it helps the soil to have some structure to it. So what do I have growing in my homemade compost and vermicompost garden? I want to say 33 plants and about half a dozen or more varieties of tomatoes, and about the same for peppers. Straight 8 cucumbers because those are the only ones that I had seeds for this year. Juliet tomatoes, purple Russian tomatoes, large cherry tomatoes, butternut squash, straight neck squash, black beauty zucchini, a super sweet 100. By the way, that is one plant and it's hard to show the whole thing. It's ridiculous. I just pruned it today. But I am going to show you, these beds. It's essentially the same concept as a straw bale garden because we only built these beds about a month ago. And this bed hasn't had much planted in it, but 3 weeks. And I have fruit that I've already picked off out of these. The cucumbers went crazy. Okay, I admit I picked it a little early, but they really took off. And I have watermelon and some more peppers and some red vein sorrel, 3 baby elephant ears that I rescued from somewhere else, catnip, and nasturtium. And that mess over there is the load of straw. I always get it confused, is it straw or is it hay? But anyway, over here I don't usually show either because it's kind of a work in progress, and where I do most, it's kind of where the sausage was made. And I'm preparing, this used to be, I had an arch, a huge arch here last year, and it was really productive with gourds and things like that. But I wanted to see what would grow over here because it does not get much sun anymore because of that. They give me wonderful leaves, but the tree has grown significantly. But I'm composting all this down kind of in place. I'm not in any great big hurry. These beds are also sort of experimental, but I've been using them to extend my salad production because it's June 10th, I think. And in this, there are so many worms, so many in all my beds because I've used my own compost and I've used my own vermicompost. Live worms get transferred in, plus the cocoons. And there's so much organic matter in there, and I keep, you know, everything pretty moist, even when it's not pouring down rain, that the worms are living in there happily. A lot of things I haven't transplanted, and some herbs, 2 or 3 different types of basil, parsley, oregano, and something else that I don't, thyme probably, German thyme. But other than many tens of thousands of worms, I have 3 compost piles in here. That middle one is covered because it's one that I'm keeping hot right now. That smaller pile I've been using, and it's finished compost. This pile has hit 150 degrees for days at a time twice. I turned it again today and covered it because I don't want the sun drying it out. And that is in process, probably another couple of weeks to go on that. Maybe, I don't know, if I don't need it, I may just leave it 2 or 3, but I will be moving that one over and combining those 2 to move over and kind of sit, getting ready for my late summer planting. But in these piles, it's impossible for me to even say how many worms I got out of there, but it was, I couldn't get them all. So what I did is I just took the compost, put it straight in the beds, and the worms lived happily ever after. And well, there, that tells you when it rains, what comes out of my beds. Looks like really good compost tea. But it's not. So this crazy yard and garden really is probably, I attribute probably 50 to 75% of it is because of various types of compost, hot compost and vermicompost. It's made transplanting go better, seedlings have done better. I'm not getting as much pest pressure as I had last year at this time, although the slugs in my salad are pretty bad. Oh, I have beans down there too, and little sunflowers. There's some cosmos that got buried up by probably the sugar pumpkin. But anyway, I don't know how one of my favorite things about the garden this year, I bought not 1 bag of soil. I used sort of a hugelkultur type method in the beds. There are limbs and things like that at the bottom, and then there was hay, and then tons of fully mature compost and vermicompost. So I don't know, you know, they tell you can't do certain things, but I have not found that always to be true, and I think a lot of it depends on where you live. I have really nasty clay soil, and here. So everything that I've planted had to have lots of compost put down, and I've mulched it with that straw or hay, whatever we're calling it. My sugar pumpkin is about to take over the world. And this really is in just 2 or 3 weeks. I was just looking at a June 3rd video, and this whole bed right here was nowhere. I mean, it had not stretched anywhere. You could see the individual little plants in there. So, of course, it got lots of compost too. So anyway, that's the Happy Heretic garden tour for June 10th. And I hope it was a little bit helpful. We actually spent very little. and it is not pretty. Paul builds everything, but I kind of maintain it myself, and there's only so much I can do. And what I'm really interested in is the health of the plants and production, the quality of the production, much more than I am the fact that there are weeds over here. So, speaking of which, I don't know why I keep seeing people talk about getting rid of their weeds. What is that all about? To have just grass. I have dandelions and tons of clover, and I have more pollinators than I know what to do with, and it stays green and it grows so fast, and this is largely responsible for keeping the compost piles going the way they do with the heat that they have. Regular grass, almost no regular grass, cultivated grass, would grow as fast or as well as weeds. So these are my sunflowers. This also has just been done in the past month or so. More tomatoes on this side. I think these are Rutgers and Juliet. More nasturtium, miniature marigolds. They're producing really, really well. I think these are the Juliets. They should be ripening soon. So many of them. And my sunflowers in this middle bed are just about to open, so that makes me happy. More peppers and some garlic, but all of these beds were built, all of the beds, everything was built the same way. Homemade compost with all of the junk in my yard and tons of vermicompost. So I hope that this helps a little bit. Like it if you like it, and subscribe if you want to see what crazy thing I'm up to on any given day.